Good evening, guys. Welcome to another biology lesson. In this video, we are going to look at the topic soil. So if you are logged in right now, let me know that you are watching and everything is clear on your end. We'll begin by looking at soil composition. So simply want to identify what soil is actually made up of. So soil has four components. And let's try to identify the cell components. So the first component of air has got about 25%. Component B has got 23 to 25%. Then component C has 7 to 5%. And component D is about 45%. So what do you think is component A? Yes, chat. What will be component A? So component A is simply air. So that is our first component of soil. So soil contains air, which is about 25%. Next, let's identify component B. Very good, chat. So component B is water. Very good. So we have water as our second component of air. Then the lowest component of air we have is component C, which is about 7% to 5% depending on the soil. So what do you think is component C? Yes, chat. Very good. So component C is organic matter. So we have organic matter, which will be component C. So when we talk about organic matter, we have two types of organic matter. There is living organic matter and dead organic matter. Then lastly, but not the least, we have our last component of soil, which is D. And what is the name of our fourth component of soil? Yes, chat. So the last component of soil is mineral particles. So that is our last component of soil which we have, which is the mineral particles, which makes up majority of the soil. So when we are holding the soil in our hands, all those are mineral particles. We are holding, containing different withered rocks and mineral salts. So these are the components of soil. So soil has four components. It has air, water, organic matter, as well as mineral particles. So the largest component of soil we have is the mineral particles, which takes about 45%. Then we have air, which is about 25%, water, which is about 23%, and we have organic matter taking about 7%. So organic matter has two components. It has got living organic matter and dead organic matter. All right, chat. So that is what you have to be able to remember when you talk about the components of soil. So next we'll move on to another aspect of soil. So now we are going to look at the types of soil. Let's identify the types of soil. So we have three types of soil here, labeled A, B, and C. So let's identify the types of soil. What is soil A? Yes, chat, what is soil A? All right, very good. So soil A is the sandy soil. So we have sand soil, which is the A. Very good. And how is the texture of sand soil? Let me know in the comment section. Okay. Next soil we have is soil B. So let's identify soil B. Yes, chat. What would be soil B? Okay. So soil B is the clay soil. So we have clay soil, and how is the texture of clay soil? How does clay feel when you're holding it in your arms? or your hands, sorry, not arms. Okay. Then what would be the third type of soil? Our last type of soil, but not the least, we have C. Okay. Yes, chat. What would be soil type C? So soil type C is the loam soil. So we have loam soil. So these are our types of soil. We have sand soil, clay soil, and the loam soil. So sand soil has a rough texture. Clay soil will have a smooth texture, while loam soil will have a fair, rough, and smooth texture. So when you come to water retention, when you pour water on these three types of soil, which type of soil will the water pass through quickly? Is it the loam soil, clay soil, or sand soil? When you pour just a bit of water on the soil, which one will drain faster? Very good. So the soil which will drain faster is the sandy soil. That is the one which will basically lose the water faster. So that means that sandy soil has got quick drainage. And which type of soil will basically hold a lot of water? Will be keeping a lot of water. Is it loam soil or clay soil? Very good chat. So the soil which will basically hold a lot of water is the clay soil. So meaning that clay soil has got high water retention. So that's why it's actually very good. Do I have anyone from Mongo in the chat? So the time I was in Mongo once during the rain season, you find that it would rain very heavily. Uh, then early in the morning, you pass through, wake up in the morning, you find there's no any puddles of water anywhere. But here in Lusaka, if it rains, you are going to seriously find there's water logged everywhere. There's quite a lot of water, a lot of puddles. But in Mongo, you won't find any puddles of water because there you have a lot of sand soil. Let me know any other part of the country or where we also have the same situation where we have a lot of sand or you have a lot of clay. Let me know how your city is. If it's sandy, clay, or loamy soil, where it's fair, where it rains in a short time, the puddles will be there, but then they'll be gone. But other areas, when it rains, the puddles stay for a longer time, even up to 2 weeks to 3 weeks, the puddles are still there. Okay. So these were the types of soil. So let's move on and look at another component. So next now we want to look at the factors that make soil fertile. So I want to look at what factors are going to make soil fertile so that it can be used for growing plants. Because the soil which we use for growing plants is loam soil. So let's look at the factors that will make soil fertile. So we have different factors here which are going to make soil fertile, and let's try to identify what these factors are. So we start with A. So which factor is making the soil fertile here? Yes, chat. Which factor is making the soil fertile? So the factor that is making soil fertile here is the water, which we refer to simply as the moisture. So we have the moisture which is making soil fertile. So water is very important because plants need water for the process of photosynthesis. It is also needed to dissolve mineral salts, which the plant can then absorb through the roots through active transport and also absorb the water through osmosis. Then next we have B, which are components C, which are needed in the soil. And what components do we need? Which is B. Yes, chat. Okay, I know most of you are going to say fertilizer, but the component of soil which we can simply quantify is what referred to as mineral salts. So mineral salts are important to make soil fertile because mineral salts are needed for plant growth. So for example, plants are going to need nitrogen for formation of proteins. They're going to need the phosphorus for root development and also for making our ATP because they need the phosphorus there. Then apart from that, we also need the potassium, which is needed for stem growth and also flowering of plants. So we have so many nutrients which are needed. For example, we have silicon, zinc, boron, calcium, magnesium, as well as iron are all needed by plants. Okay, so we looked at the nutrients in the topic under nutrients. That is where we find the uses of plant nutrients. Okay, so next we look at the next component, which is component C, which is in the soil there, and what component is needed to make soil fertile, which is C. Yes, chat. So which component do we have there, which is going to make the soil fertile? So the component which is there to make soil fertile is the pH. So we also need the pH to make soil fertile, because the pH or potential hydrogen will actually affect the absorption of nutrients by plants. So if the soil becomes too acidic, the microorganisms will die, and it also affects the carrier proteins in the roots, which are supposed to absorb mineral salts by active water transport. That's why plants need an alkaline pH to do better. If the soil is too acidic, the soil becomes infertile. Then we have component D. So which component is D, which is needed in the soil? So yes, chat. I know most of you have said the earthworm, but we are going to classify the earthworm as the living organisms. So you need living organisms in the soil. Remember I said that the soil will consist of dead organic matter and living organic matter. So living organisms might be macro as well as microorganisms. So these are needed in the soil because through their activities, they'll make the soil fertile. So for example, the earthworms will be feeding on dead organic matter, turning it into compost, which then plants can later absorb as nutrients for their growth. So that's why you need the organisms such as earthworms, microorganisms such as bacteria, as well as fungi are there to make the soil fertile. Okay. Then we have E, which is the last component. So which component do we have here, which is needed to make the soil fertile? Yes, chat. Let me know in the comment section. Which component will make the soil fertile? So the component which is going to make the soil fertile is simply organic matter. Together, so we have the dead organic matter here. You can see which is being used to form compost. So that's why it's important that even at home, whatever leftovers you have, the vegetables, the banana peels, you throw them in the compost heap so that you form compost which you can then use in your garden, or even for your flowers, which are there to make your house look beautiful. So that's why you need to make sure your soil contains organic matter. So in organic matter, remember we have living organic matter as well as the dead organic matter. So one component which is invisible, which is also needed in the soil, unfortunately I'm not able to show it here, but we looked at it under the components of soil. So what else do we need which is supposed to make the soil fertile? What do you think is missing among the components here? All right, very good, chat. So the component which is missing is the air. Very good. So you also need air as a factor that makes soil fertile, because air is needed for respiration by microorganisms in the soil. Remember, the earthworms, the bacteria, they all need air for them to function. If there's no air, these organisms will die, then the soil activities will stop, which are supposed to make your soil fertile. So that's why you need air also in the soil. So that's why your soil should not be too compact. It should be a bit loose so that there's air going through, so that water can pass through, air can also pass through to the microorganisms. So these are the factors that make soil fertile. We have air, we have moisture, mineral salts, pH, living organisms, as well as the organic water matter. All right, chat. So in case you have any questions, also feel free to leave it in the comment section. And if you have enjoyed the video so far, don't forget to give it a like. That really helps me out and makes the channel grow. All right, moving on. Now we are going to look at the causes of loss of fertility of soil. So I want to look at the factors which now can cause our soil to lose its fertility, because we want to maintain the soil so that we can keep on growing crops. We grow food because we need food to survive. Otherwise, if our crops are not doing well, for example, prices of mini meal keep on increasing because we can't grow enough for food. So that's why we need to make sure we have fertile soil, and we see what causes soil to become infertile. All right, so we have some factors here which will cause the soil to lose its fertility. So let's try to identify the factors which we have which will cause the soil to become what? Infertile. So what factor is A, which will lead to loss of soil fertility? All right, very good chat. So the factor which will cause loss of soil fertility, which is represented by A, is deforestation. So when deforestation takes place, that is our cutting down of trees. So the trees are important because they're able to hold the roots of the trees are able to hold the soil. So that prevents soil erosion. So when it rains, we avoid the washing away of the topsoil, which also contains microorganisms. So that's why deforestation will lead to loss of soil fertility. All right. Moving on to the next factor, which is B. What factor will cause us to lose the soil fertility? So the next factor which we have, yes, of course, we've said fire, but we are going to say late burning. So the factor is called late burning. So this is where we normally have forest fires when the forest is too dry, when we have the driest part of the month. That is when late burning takes place. So now when late burning is taking place, the fire becomes too intense. So it normally burns everything, and the fire becomes too hot such that it's able to even bake or cook the microorganisms in the soil. So the microorganisms will die out. And remember, we said if the microorganisms die, the soil loses its activity, so it becomes what? Infertile. And apart from that, the high intensity heat fire can also burn seeds which are supposed to grow the following season. So now as all the seeds have been burnt out, meaning that the following time it rains, no growth will take what place. So that's why late burning is never encouraged. That's why it's always good to burn immediately. For example, when the bush, some part of the bush is dry, the other part is too fresh. Because once that happens, the fire will burn only the dry part and leave the fresh vegetation. Now, if the entire forest is dry, everything gets burnt. Right? So that's why late burning should not be encouraged. So next we'll see where we have a lot of goats around on one piece of land. So what do you think is the factor C? Yes, chat. So what factor will be C? So the factor which we have, which is C, is simply overgrazing. So we have overgrazing taking what place. So overgrazing will also lead to loss of soil fertility because the goats or the cows which you have on a small piece of land will end up eating all the plant vegetation. And remember, we said we need plant vegetation to hold the soil. So if there's no soil structures holding the soil like roots, once it rains, everything gets washed away. So that ends up leading to desertification. Apart from that, as the animals are moving or stamping on the soil, they'll start compacting the soil. And as they compact, the soil ends up losing what? Air. So that's why you find that, for example, where we have footpaths, where we normally walk, the grass won't grow back on the footpath because the soil is compact. There's no air in that soil, so nothing can germinate. So that's why I find that the animals normally will end up causing the soil not to become fertile. Okay. So let's move on to the next factor which we have, which is factor D. And what do you think is the factor D, which is leading to loss of soil fertility? Yes, chat. What is factor D? So factor D is poor farming. So we have poor farming methods So, for example, where we use the overuse of organic fertilizer, which will make the soil acidic, can lead to poor yields altogether. So, poor farming methods will actually lead to loss of soil fertility. Okay, so that will lead to loss of fertility. So I know most of you will be thinking that Stemene system is a poor farming method. Actually, Stemene system is not a poor farming method. It's actually a good farming method. It's able to preserve the soil as well as the trees. The only thing that people do in Stemene system is to cut the branches. They don't cut the entire tree. So meaning that the tree will still remain to hold the soil. So that's why that one is not a poor farming method. All right, so let's look at the last factor now, which will lead to loss of soil fertility. Mhm. What do you think is factor C? Let's chat. Mhm. All right, very good chat. So factor C is simply harvesting. I know harvesting is a bit controversial. It's quite difficult to wrap your head around, but it's quite easy. So when we harvest, for example, we are getting our vegetables. It was for the vegetables to grow. They were absorbing mineral salts from the what? From the ground, isn't it? So now when we get the leaves, it means that we've also collected the mineral salts which were in the soil to go and eat. Meaning that the soil has been left bare without any mineral salts. So that's why I find that before farmers need to plant again their garden again, they need to add some more they'll need to add some more manure to the ground so that it's able to actually grow again a better yield next time. So that is why harvesting can also lead to loss of soil fertility. So that's why it's important that after harvesting, for example, your maize, don't throw the stalks of maize out of your field because the stalks contain mineral salts which are supposed to go back into the soil again. So let them remain in the field and decompose so that the microorganisms can work on them to add the nutrients back into the soil again. So that will continue the cycle of nutrients. So guys, this is the factors which are going to lead to loss of soil fertility. We have deforestation, we have lead burning, we have overgrazing, poor farming method, and the harvesting. So deforestation, lead burning, overgrazing, poor farming method, they all end up causing soil erosion, which also leads to leaching of the soil, where mineral salts get washed away. So when the topsoil mineral salts are being washed away, we refer to that as the leaching. Okay. All right. So thank you so much for uh, all that answers you've given in the chat. Let's move on and look at something else again. We're still on soil. So next now I want to look at the methods of improving and retaining soil fertility. So what can we do to make our soil fertile and to ensure that the soil does not lose its fertility? Okay. So let's try to identify some of the methods which are done to improve our soil fertility. So we have some factors here, A, B, C, D, and D, E. So let's try to identify the factors of what is going to make our soil be improved and to retain its fertility. Okay, so what is factor A? So we have a farmer there adding something to the soil. What is factor A? Yes, chat? Mhm. So factor A is simply adding what? Lime. So we need to add lime that will actually create a suitable what? pH. Or if you can say simply suitable pH is still fine. So by adding lime, we are trying to neutralize the acid which was created by adding fertilizer. So that will actually improve our soil what? Fertility. So lime will also improve the crab structure of the soil, meaning that the soil is able to form a ball-like structure. It's able to hold itself. Then apart from that, the calcium in the soil is also needed as a plant nutrient. So that actually helps the plants to grow better. Then we have B. So what is B? Let's identify B. Yes, chat. Very good. So when we come to B, we are simply talking about crop rotation. So we're talking about crop rotation. Eh? So here, as we grow our crops, it's important that we're able to shift our crops from year to year. So in one field, the current year you plant maize, in the other field you plant legumes like peas, you plant beans or groundnuts. Then in the following year you rotate your crops so that in the field where you had beans, you plant in maize. And where you had maize, you plant in the beans so that you're able to rotate. So the beans will actually be adding nutrients back into the soil. We'll come and look at the legumes again when we come to look at the nitrogen cycle, the next topic, which is the ecology, as we look at the nitrogen cycle. So that's why we need to make sure we are rotating our crops with legumes so that the legumes are able to retain nutrients into the soil. So that will improve our soil fertility. All right, moving on to the next component, which is C. What will be component C? Yes, chat. So component C here is simply weeding. So we need to weed to actually improve our soil fertility, because weeding itself is actually very, very important. It does not just make your garden look nice, but you actually, as you pull out the weeds, you are reducing competition with your crops, because the weeds also are taking in mineral salts, which they are using for them to also grow. So when you remove them out, only your plants will remain, and they'll have now enough space to grow because they'll have more area for the roots to develop, so they're able to take up more water, they're able to take up mineral salts, and the plants do well. They'll actually grow much bigger. So that's why weeding is an important aspect. All right. Next, we have D, and what factor do we have in D, or what method are we using here to improve soil fertility? Okay, as you can see, the farmer's hand has got fertilizer. So we are simply saying adding what? Fertilizer. So by adding fertilizer, we'll actually be able to improve our soil what? Fertility. Now remember, when you come to fertilizer, don't add too much, because if you add too much, you make your soil become what? Infertile. Okay, so that's why here we have to add the fertilizer, because remember when we talked about harvesting, the plants which we are growing will take up mineral salts, so we need to add fertilizer to replace the mineral salts which we lost in the previous season. So that's why adding fertilizer improves the soil fertility. All right, let's now look at our last factor of or method of improving soil fertility, which is E. And which factor are we seeing here? Yes, chat, let me know in the comment section what factor do we have under E. So for E, we have what referred to as conservation farming. I know some of you would have said mulching. Yes, mulching is part of conservation farming, because in conservation farming, we do not waste anything. So the old stocks which we had of maize, we need to add them back into the soil so that they're able to decompose. Then apart from that, in conservation farming, we don't do very high tillage, because we are going to disturb the structure, we're going to disturb the microorganism. So that we have what is known as no-till, where instead of planting your maize, you dig. What you simply do, you just dig a hole where you're going to plant the seed. Leave the soil the way it is. So that's why you find that it's even cheaper, because you don't need to hire a big tractor to come and till, which is very expensive because it is going to use fuel. But if you are doing no tillage, it is actually cheaper and easier to grow your crops, and you are also improving fertility because you are not disturbing the soil structure. So the microorganisms have chance in which they are able to grow. So these are the factors or methods which are used to improve and retain soil fertility. So we have adding of lime or providing a suitable pH, we have crop rotation, we have weeding, we have adding fertilizer, as well as conservation farming. So if you've enjoyed the video so far, again, don't forget to give the video a like, and leave a comment also in the comment section. We really appreciate your help. Okay, so next we'll now look at the distribution of earthworms in different types of soil. So we want to know in which types of soil are we going to find the earthworms. All right, So we have our nice earthworm here. So which soil will the earthworm find a home in? Is it soil A, soil B, or soil C? So we are about to guide our worm to say we are now real estate agents. We want the worm to find a nice home. So where will we give the worm to say this will be the best place for you to stay in? Is it soil A, soil B, or soil C? Yes, chat. In which type of soil is the earthworm going to stay in? Uh-huh. Excellent work, chat. So yes, the earthworm will actually stay in soil C, eh? Because when you look at soil A, what type of soil is soil A? Yes, so soil A is the sandwater soil. You can see that is sandy soil. So the earthworm won't be able to stay in sandy soil because it lacks water, or sand soil is normally dry because of the quick drainage. Then we have B, and B is which type of soil? So for B, the type of soil we have is the clay soil. So clay soil has got a lot of nutrients, but clay soil is compact. So it actually does not contain a lot of air, so the earthworm might end up suffocating if it stays in there. Then we have now C, which is of course our warm water soil. So the earthworm will prefer to stay in loam soil, but the loam soil needs to actually contain moisture, because if the loam soil is dry, the earthworms are not going to be present there because their bodies are soft. They don't have any structure to prevent water loss. So the earthworms end up dying in dry soil. So that's why they prefer moist soil. Then apart from that, the soil should also be fertile, means that it could contain organic matter for the earthworm to actually be able to eat. Otherwise, if there's no organic matter, then the earthworm will starve to death. Then lastly, the soil should also have a neutral pH, because if the soil becomes acidic, it will end up killing the earthworm. So that's why it needs to have a neutral pH. So that's why you are going to find a high distribution of earthworms in loam soil that is moist, is fertile, and also has a neutral pH. All right, guys. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Okay. So guys, this is what I had for us in today's lesson. I hope we enjoyed the video so far. Otherwise, these are the areas which you have to concentrate on when you look at the component or topic. So make sure you read through all the components. You look at the components of soil. You look at the factors that make soil fertile. Then you also look at what will lead to loss of soil fertility, and also understand the methods of improving soil fertility, and also look at the distribution of earthworms. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. If you've watched all the way up to the end, I really appreciate you watching the video all the way up to the end. Thank you so much. And please continue subscribing and watching the videos which are here, and keep on studying to prepare for your exams. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye for now. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.